Today, we're tackling an important question for anybody interested in Mexico. And the question is, can foreigners own property in Mexico? If you've ever fantasized about a beachfront villa in Cancun, a colonial home in San Miguel de Allende, or a cozy condo in Mexico City, you're in the right place. The short answer is yes, foreigners can own property in Mexico, but there's a lot more to the story, and we're diving deep into the details, including some lesser known perks and pitfalls that you won't find in most guides about property ownership in Mexico. So let's start with the big picture. The question, can foreigners own property in Mexico, often comes with myths and confusion. So let's clear the air. Yes, foreigners, whether you're from the US, Canada, Europe, Asia, or anywhere else, can legally own property in Mexico. But there's a catch, especially if you're eyeing land in Mexico's restricted zone. The restricted zone, established by Mexico's constitution, actually, covers all the land within 100 kilometers of Mexico's borders and 50 kilometers of its coastlines. This includes hotspots like Puerto Vallarta, Tulum, Baja California. Anywhere on the coast is in the restricted zone. So why the restriction? It's rooted in Mexico's history of protecting national sovereignty, dating back to concerns about foreign influence. But don't worry, Mexico has a workaround that makes ownership possible, and it's been used successfully for decades. Outside the restricted zone, in places like Mexico City, Guanajuato, or Oaxaca, foreigners can own property outright, just like Mexican citizens, with full title, also known as escritura pública. Inside the restricted zone, you'll typically use a fideicomiso, a bank trust system, or in some cases, a Mexican corporation. We'll break these down, but first, let's explore why owning property in Mexico is so appealing to foreigners. Let's also dive into the fideicomiso, which is the key to owning property in Mexico's restricted zone. A fideicomiso is a bank trust agreement where a Mexican bank holds the title to the property on your behalf, but you are the beneficiary. This means you have full control. You can use, rent, sell, or pass the property to your heirs, just like direct ownership. The bank's role is purely administrative, ensuring compliance with Mexican law. Here's how it works. You choose a property, work with a notary public, a notario, a specifically licensed attorney in Mexico, and set up the fideicomiso with a bank like Banorte or HSBC. The trust is typically valid for 50 years and renewable indefinitely, either by you or your heirs. Setup costs range from $2,000-3,000 with annual fees of $500 to $1,000 depending on the bank. Now here's a lesser known perk. The fideicomiso also offers security. Since the bank holds the title, it's nearly impossible for title disputes or fraud to derail your ownership, a concern in some countries with less robust legal systems. Plus, the fideicomiso is recognized internationally. So if you're a Canadian or American, your Mexican property can be included in your will or estate plan without complications. A common misconception: some think the fideicomiso means you don't really own the property, quote unquote. It's not true. You have all the rights of ownership, minus the technical title. And the Mexican government has upheld this system for over 50 years. It's a proven foreigner-friendly solution. Now let's talk about owning property outside the restricted zone. If you're eyeing property outside the restricted zone, in other words, in the center of the country, things get much simpler. In interior cities like San Miguel de Allende, Mérida, Querétaro, Mexico City, Guadalajara, Guanajuato, foreigners can own land and buildings outright in these places with full title registered in their name. No fideicomiso, no middleman, just you, a notary, in the Registro Público de la Propiedad, okay, the civil registry. You can have direct ownership in the center of the country as long as you're more than 50 kilometers from the ocean. And here's the hidden gem. Owning outright in these areas is often cheaper because you skip the fideicomiso's setup costs and the annual fees, right? You got annual fees of $500,000 a year to maintain this house that you wouldn't have if you were a Mexican citizen or you were outside the restricted zone. For example, a charming colonial home in Oaxaca might be $150,000 to $300,000. Closing costs are around 5 to 7% of the purchase price compared to higher fees in coastal areas. Plus, these regions are cultural hubs offering vibrant expat communities, affordable living, and proximity to Mexico's rich history like Mayan ruins or archaeological sites. A lot of these interior cities are just as popular with tourists, right? Another perk, the Mexican government encourages foreign investment in these areas. So you'll face fewer bureaucratic hurdles. You can even finance your purchase through Mexican banks, though terms are stricter than in the US or Canada. This direct ownership makes interior Mexico a dream for retirees or investors looking for both value and title. Now let's talk about another option that's less common but super powerful: owning your property through a Mexican corporation. If you are a non-resident planning to use the property for business, like running a rental, a hotel, or a commercial venture, you can set up a Mexican corporation. There's a couple different types, but there's Sociedad Anónima, Sociedad de Responsabilidad Limitada, to hold the title even in the restricted zone. Here's how it works. You form the corporation with the help of a Mexican attorney or notary, typically costing anywhere from $1,500 to $3,000. You and the other shareholders, who can also be foreigners, own the corporation, which then owns the property. This bypasses the fideicomiso entirely, and there are no annual trust fees. Here's the other lesser-known advantage. A corporation can own multiple properties under one entity, streamlining management if you are building a portfolio. Plus, it offers tax benefits. Income from rentals or sales can be reported through the corporation, potentially at Mexico's corporate tax rate of 30%, or offset by deductions like maintenance or depreciation. This is a game changer for investors or digital nomads running Airbnb businesses. A word of caution though, corporations require annual tax filings and compliance with Mexican regulations, so you'll need a local accountant. It's ideal for business-minded owners, but potentially overkill for personal vacation homes. Now let's talk financial and tax considerations and get into the money side of things, because owning property in Mexico as a foreigner comes with unique financial perks, but also responsibilities. First, the good news. Mexico's property market is often more affordable than the US, Canada, or Europe. For example, a beachfront condo in Playa del Carmen might cost $200,000 to $400,000 compared to $1 million plus in California. Closing costs, including notary fees, taxes, and appraisals, typically runs 5 to 10% of the purchase price. Here's a hidden perk. Mexico does not impose a capital gains tax on your primary residence if you've lived there for at least 2 years and the sale price is under a certain threshold, which is about $250,000 US for 2025. For non-residents, capital gains on investment properties are taxed at 25 to 35%, but you can deduct costs like renovations or commissions, and tax treaties with countries like the US or Canada can reduce double taxation. Another point is that the property taxes, also known as predial in Mexico, are incredibly low, often $100 to $500 per year for a mid-sized home, compared to thousands in the US. This makes holding property affordable, especially for retirees. However, non-residents must file a Mexican tax return if they earn rental income, so partnering with a local accountant is key. Your property ownership also qualifies you for a temporary resident visa, which can lead to permanent residency, unlocking access to Mexico's healthcare and banking system. Finally, let's talk about something that makes owning property in Mexico truly special: the cultural and lifestyle benefits. As a foreign property owner, you're not just buying real estate, you're investing in Mexico. Owning property immerses you in Mexico's expat-friendly communities. It can help you in your path to citizenship as well. Just as, when you apply for citizenship, if you say, hey, I own some property in Mexico as well, here's the deed with my name on it, it looks good for your citizenship application. Places like Puerto Vallarta, Lake Chapala, and San Miguel de Allende have thriving networks of foreigners who share tips on everything from local contractors to taco stands. These communities often organize cultural events, language classes, charity drives. Makes it really easy to integrate. And property ownership strengthens your connection to Mexico's heritage. As an owner, plus owning property makes it easier to qualify for long-term visas, letting you live in Mexico part or full-time, soaking up its affordable healthcare and low cost of living. And your property is a gateway to a richer, more connected life. A lot of people don't realize that property investment is a pathway to residency in Mexico. Most people apply via other financial solvency requirements, either showing income or savings, but investing in property is another option as well. And by the way, if you'd like to get residency in Mexico, or you need a lawyer for your real estate transaction in Mexico, you need an accountant, you need citizenship in Mexico, maybe by descent, maybe you have Mexican family, whatever your situation is, we can help. There's a link in the description where you can book a call with us and we can talk about residency in Mexico, investing in Mexico, real estate, taxes, everything that you need to make this move successfully. So there you have it, folks. Can foreigners own property in Mexico? The answer is yes, absolutely, through the fideicomiso system or direct ownership or a Mexican corporation. So you've got options tailored to your goals, from affordable prices and low taxes to robust legal protections and a vibrant cultural lifestyle. Owning property in Mexico is a dream that's actually within reach. Whether you're planning to retire, invest, or just escape to paradise, I hope this video answered your questions and sparked some excitement. Have you considered buying property in Mexico? Got some questions about the process? Drop them in the comments below. We'd love to see any questions you might have or stories that you guys would like to share. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell for more global living and investment tips in Latin America and Mexico. And until next time, we'll see you in the next video.